Good morning. So good to be back with everybody. And Matt, good to see you again.
Good to see you too. I have a little bit of a stiff neck, so if I don't give you that
I'll
great
turn for you.
that great eye contact, I just slept wrong last night. I guess
You're getting old. About time.
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Now Matt's going to start to acknowledge and experience all the aches and pains I live through on a daily basis. With the weather outside getting frightful, and we come up on this time of year, the end of the year, coming up on Christmas, everybody's happy. Everybody's thinking about the importance of relationships and how much we've poured into people over the years and how we've grown this year. I think it's a great time for us to talk about what that means for the relationships we have with our customers and our clients, and how we can make those more meaningful and I think fruitful over time. And we were talking about this in the office the other day because Fran, who's part of our team, she was telling us about her dog and how she was ordering dog food recently. And she was on the phone with the good folks at Chewy.com. And Fran was talking to this person, sharing, they have a puppy doing this, what food's best. We tried all this, and they're just having a discussion. And Fran mentioned that their dog, Jake, had passed this past year. And the person on the other line said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And that was it. Next day, knock at the door, and Fran gets this beautiful bouquet of flowers from Chewy.com with a condolence message. "So sorry for your family's loss of your cherished Jake. Please know that you're in our thoughts and prayers." From Chewy.com, right? How wonderful. Like, think of that. A person on the other end of the phone heard something, was empowered to act, and did something about it. Do you think Fran's going to be price shopping dog food anytime soon?
Nope.
Customer for life.
Well, I think in that moment, what's important that they were in the position and they were actually listening. We talk so often about the difference between listening and active listening, and there's a key difference there. It's not waiting and pausing to then speak or to get through, the call or check the box that you had your check-in or your touch point.
Or push my agenda.
Correct. Even for non-salespeople, as we think about, all the individuals that might touch an account or a client after sales or alongside sales. And so they were actively listening, and in that mode of active listening, to not only hear that, but then I think you said, empowered by the organization to do something about it.
And they cared. They actually cared. And, we're going to talk today about how do we do that? How do we prove that we care? And what do we do to create those customers for life? And how do we create that loyalty, that customer, that client loyalty that's so critical? I think one of it is it starts by letting people know you care, right? But how do we do that? And there was a great article written recently by the Rain Group. And Rain Group is a great firm, does fabulous research in the field of sales. And we're affiliated with them through our relationship with Objective Management Group. And they wrote an article, and a couple of points they made in that article that I thought are interesting is it starts with being proactive, right? When you build loyalty, it's not accidental. I mean, you'll have some success with just doing the right thing and delivering what you say you're going to deliver and having a good product and doing but it's not enough. We have to be proactive in the relationship to anticipate some needs, I think, and surprise people. I started the other day, I was on a call with, we do these things called triads with a lot of our clients where we're coaching, where if we're having somebody we're coaching, we meet with them and their boss, who's usually our project sponsor, and we have a triad where the three of us get together and talk about the things this person should work on for the next 90 days. The other day I was on a triad, and the leader started and said to the person who I coach, he said, "Mark, I had high expectations for you, but you've exceeded them." I thought, what a great way to start this call. Too often that's not the way we start it. But what if our customers, what if our clients said that about us? Hey, when we started with you guys, we had high expectations and you've exceeded them. How often does that happen?
Well, I think it gets to a concept that we talk a lot about, and we have in the past few weeks, of asking how we're doing. and being able to be proactive. How many of us wait till something goes bad or something goes wrong in business? It inevitably does. Even the best providers of the best solutions, they're going to be shortcomings. And as a side note, great opportunity with a little healthy conflict to build better relationships. I know you'd probably go off on that tangent since I'm in your head. But how many of us are proactively asking how we're doing in a bold way? We were talking the other day, or I was talking with a client, and we're beating around the value and what we think and a value prop, and it's something that we've discussed. And I pulled out once again, not to be the one trick pony, but when's the last time we asked them? Is this all perceived? When we have follow-ups, are we talking about what's the one thing we can be doing better? Even if it's a great relationship, because that's proactive. And they're usually small, silly things that they say, hey, you happen to call me at 3. Can you do it 3:15? Or can you bill me on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday? Talk about continuously adding value in that wow factor that we like to go back to. Just asking the one thing question and being bold enough not to go through the motions. Hey, how's it going? How you doing? How's the family? Okay, great. I did my check-in. But
That's right.
What's
I built great rapport. We have a great relationship.
Yeah, and again, we've talked about it, but I just want to re-emphasize it again, third time, fourth time, because it's so powerful, and people fail to act on it, and people do go through the motions and asking how we're doing.
Yeah, and don't be shocked. If you're just going through those motions and you're not asking, what's one thing we could be doing better, or you're not bringing solutions to somebody proactively, don't be surprised when they call you and say, by the way, we're going in another direction. We're not going to renew our contract. We're going to another vendor.
And that's the time of year right now. A lot of people are on the fiscal through December. And so we're having those conversations, and there's a few surprise salespeople out there that are like, I don't know what happened. Right. That was we have a great relationship. It must be the economy. It must be it. But
the competitor undercut our price.
That proactive nature that you're talking on and being prepared to act, I think starts in just like a salesperson, that active listening and active questioning and providing value with when we hear something. Hey, are you thinking about this? Or we've seen others do this. What are your thoughts on that? What's one thing I can be doing between now and we talk again that looks like help? Just really easy, open-ended questions that provide high impact and a lot of value.
Yeah, and oftentimes that starts in the selling process. It's not 4 years. Well, hit my microphone there. Sorry. It's not 4 years later. It's in the selling process. So when we're in the process, how closely, how willingly, how flexible are we to map our selling process to their buying process? Because that's when it starts. People start to recognize whether we're easy to work with, whether they're going to like working with us while we're selling to them, not necessarily years down the road. So how willing are we to map our selling process to their buying process? It all starts there. And then how proactive do we want to be about being intentional about asking what we could be doing better, or bringing solutions to people and simply asking them like, hey, how you dealing with ABC? When you hear of legislative changes or whatever economy now, right? Think about the economic demands and pressures that are under people. How are you dealing with that? Those are the questions that connect people and allow us to connect people to people, right? And connect, maybe we're one of those people that allow us to connect to a person as real people, not as just vendors. So how do we be proactive? That's one thing we need to do when we're thinking about this customer loyalty. And how easy are we to work with? That starts in the buying process. So are we easy to work with? Or do we make people jump through hoops and do things that they might not find value in and necessarily have value add steps to the process?
Yeah, one other question, and I'll let you get to number 2 or 3. Another question I like to talk about is, what's one thing I should be working on between now and when we chat again? We talk about what looks like help.
Love that one.
But what's one thing I should be working on? Great opportunity to generate business, which is okay. That's not a selfish stance.
It's not a dirty word, selling.
Right. Yeah. There you go. To some it is though. But by asking that, you're providing that value. You're on the fringe of maybe something they need or want to investigate or haven't had the time. What a great way to provide value and keep them engaged and meaningful follow up from there.
Yeah. I'm smiling to myself because I have jokes running through my head. And the joke was, talk dirty to me. I'm in sales. That's not a dirty word, being in sales. It's not dirty to want to grow our relationship, especially if we know we have products that add value to other people's lives and help them. So let's not be afraid of that. The other thing is, why wait till it's too late? Too often when we see people thinking about building loyalty, it's because something's gone wrong. It's the whole old adage in the book, good to great, right? Well, good is the enemy of great. Why? Because I'm not desperate. Because I don't need to do hard things. I don't need to work too hard. I'm good. It's been a good year, right? How's your year? Good?
Good. How you doing? Good.
Nothing to complain about. Okay, when did we wake up? When did we become a nation pursuing mediocrity? Why not pursue greatness? Right? So if we want to pursue greatness, it can't wait. We can't wait till it's too late. We can't wait until we see people leaving us because our pricing's too great or we're not adapting and we're not bringing new solutions to the market. Let's be intentional about being great. And let's start embedding what we do inside the organization. I think that's a great flaw of many organizations is they view the sale as the end, right? They view the sale as that's the completion. And if you view that and just getting the order signed as completion, you're not going to build loyalty. You're not going to build greatness in your relationships. What if and this is why in our sales process, our easy selling process, the last E, and easy is EASEE. And yes, we can spell, but it's an acronym. But the last E is evaluate. Where are we in the process? What are we doing? Are we delivering wow? Are we delivering some greatness? Are we embedded in their operations? If you have software you're selling and nobody's using it, probably not going to be renewing with you. If you have a service that you provide to somebody and they're not seeing it as critical, mission critical, they're not integrating it into everything they do, they're not building internal processes around what you're doing, you're not embedded. You have to embed yourself inside the organization and become critical to everything they do.
Well, in that chasing greatness and, I think tying together that proactive, people don't want to do that. It's work, but I think they're afraid of what they might uncover or see or have to deal with. Just going back to chasing that greatness, not being good or just settling for good. What's the one thing? You might get a one thing back of, right. Well, I want you to do this, or, this hasn't been great. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that, of actually getting that response. And they'd rather just drag it out maybe a couple months or one more contract term because, they don't want to deal with that uneasiness. But again, I know we've both lived it because we're big proponents of that. By attacking it, you can build such better relationships on the back end of that. If you go into it with, their best interest in mind and, you're willing to be vulnerable and have tough discussions up front, I'd say 9 times out of 10, you come out with a better outcome in the end. We've both seen it in, some of our dealings.
Absolutely.
So absolutely, I think part of that proactive nature, that chasing greatness, not settling for good, is being unafraid of what you might find and facing some of those tough realities and being prepared to, be nimble and act and, ultimately give solutions.
Amen. Amen. And then I think one of the most critical things we can do to build loyalty in our relationships and our client relationships is the same thing we need to do to build loyalty in any of our relationships, whether it's our marriage, whether it's our business partners, whatever it is. It's build trust. How do we build trust? When our words and our actions are consistent over time, right? Do you say we care? Do you say we have great products? Do you say we're going to help you and deliver? Or do we just say whatever feels good and not deliver? And do we do this consistently over time? So when you start to build wow and deliver wow over time, you start to build trust. People start to come back to us and know, yeah, I might get a phone call from somebody that's cheaper. Yeah, I might get a phone call from somebody that seems more cutting edge and more, but I trust them. I know they're going to do what they say they're going to do. So building trust is so critical in that cycle of building customer loyalty and going on. So yes, delivering flowers when we hear of something is great. Yes, attending to people's funerals or whatever it might be when you hear them having adversity in their lives is critical. That's huge. It allows us to bond. And it's also part of just, how do we build trust over time? But we always have to be listening for opportunities to connect people to solutions, connect them to other people, and maybe connect them to a little showing that we care when we listen well enough. And I think that'll help us build the incredible customer or client loyalty that we're all seeking.
And things like the funerals and the flowers, absolutely. I think those are probably bigger things. And I can't help but hear our other partner, Ron, in my head saying, just do the simple things right. And I think part of that trust, when your words and actions are consistent over time, are fundamental and seem kind of corny, but showing up to meetings on time, respecting people's time, sending agendas, sending follow-ups, managing expectations. I'm not done yet. No, go ahead. After you.
No, it's like you're talking to me. I don't do all these things well. How about also replying to emails before the day is through? I'll never forget Sid Sokolsky, famous Pittsburgh lawyer. Sid was one of the best criminal defense lawyers that ever worked in Pittsburgh. And I remember one day I called him, not that I was being criminally prosecuted. Sid was a friend of mine. But I called him and I left a message for him, and he called me back at like 6:30 at night. I was like, Sid, what are you doing? You didn't have to call me. Tomorrow would have been fine. He said, I have a rule. I don't leave the office till I've returned every phone call that came in. And this is back in the day when you used to get your messages on little message things and they'd sit on your desk. Boy, do I miss those days because they were so much easier to manage than voicemail, I think. But Sid had a rule. He didn't leave the office until he returned messages from that day. Do we have that type of commitment to greatness? I mean, think about that. A small thing.
The day in, day out. I think it's the consistency. Words and actions consistent over time, right? Key word there is consistent. Are we being consistent? The big things are great, but don't underestimate the little things. When we talk about time and calendar invites, and it might not feel important to us because we're running around and we have a million things, but don't underestimate the impact that we have on an individual that day, or a overall organization as a client.
That's right. So that's our challenge this week. Let's go out and make a relationship great. Let's go out and embed ourselves inside of our clients. Let's go out and ask some of those questions that we might get answers to we don't want to hear, but they're going to make us better. Because I'll tell you, when you ask a one thing question of somebody, you say, hey, what's the one thing we could be doing better? And you get an answer that might be unpleasant. Like, hey, Bill, you don't return phone calls all the time. Or, hey, Bill, I wish you'd be more consistent with how you reply to email and do it quicker. And well, that might be painful to hear. You know what's a lot more painful to hear? Bill, we've decided to go in another direction. We've decided to go work with someone else that we think's better aligned with our organization and cares more about us. That would be a lot more difficult to hear than the feedback that'll help me become great. So don't be afraid to get that feedback. Let's go out and ask for it. Speaking of not being afraid, next week when we come to you, it'll probably be our Christmas special. I'll be dressed up like Santa. It's Matt's favorite day of the year because he gets to wear tights. So we'll be dressed up like an elf, right?
Yep.
All right. We'll see you next week in costume. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Take care and God bless.